Hello world, my name is Atticus and welcome to the mostly annual Joy episode where I describe an aspect of gaming that I rather enjoy. So far we've done repetition and difficulty, talking about my love of roguelikes and the silent rhythm games that FromSoft has pioneered. On that note, I just remembered that I used to play Amplitude, the PS2 version, with the volume off. If you're unfamiliar, Amplitude is a straight-up rhythm game, where you press buttons to the beat and or melody. There are visual prompts, but the audio cues tend to be more helpful. Absolute supervillain behavior. Or just like extreme anxiety, one of the two. For this episode, I'm at a bit of a loss. Both of my prior videos in the style were spurred by excitement from games I was either playing or looking forward to playing at the time. I do still like the idea of starting the year on a positive note, but nothing has stood out recently that has sparked that same kind of joy. Quick editor's note, I've recently gotten very excited about Fire Emblem Engage, and I could talk about SRPGs, but I don't know how to explain why I like staring at a grid for half an hour in a way that could make someone who is unfamiliar with the genre want to try it out. Without an obvious answer, I stand paralyzed by the sheer number of things I could potentially talk about. So let's talk about that. Welcome to the joy of choice. Choice paralysis, or analysis paralysis if you want to rhyme, is a phenomenon where the more options a person has to choose from, the harder it is to pick any of them. And that makes a sort of intuitive sense, right? The more options to pick from, the more you have to compare one to all of the others. There are actually several sayings about this. I was going to break out a grocery store example of just buying the same soap over and over because it's too much work to actually compare all the options. But like with most things, Aesop's got a fable for it. The Fox and the Cat, wherein a fox boasts about having 100 different escape routes while the cat only has one. But when the hounds come a-barkin', the cat is swiftly up a tree while the fox, in its confusion, is caught by the hounds, taking too long to decide on which of its 100 escape routes to utilize. There is also an old Italian proverb which translates to "perfect is the enemy of good," which is at least older than 1770 when Voltaire popularized it, and may again go back to ancient Greece and Aristotle this time, who had a similar saying. The concept has been around for quite a while, I think is my point here. And yet, we have sayings for the opposite end of the spectrum, extinct by instinct, where a gut choice proves fatally wrong. So there's got to be some middle ground between the two, and I don't really feel qualified to talk about any real-world examples, so we'll be seeing how a lack or abundance of choice affects gameplay. Often, when talking about choice in games, people are referring to narrative choice, how a player's actions throughout the game might affect the story. The myriad branching paths in a game like Shadow the Hedgehog or Tactics Ogre, or how the lineage of Black Isle's games pay attention to the choices you make and bring them up later. Less easily researched with the game choices phrase. There are also gameplay choices to make in a lot of titles. They're the lifeblood of roguelikes such as Hades. Back to Black Isle and their modern contemporaries like Obsidian, not only do they typically have great narrative freedom, but a lot of choice in how you go about solving a problem. The White Glove Society in Fallout New Vegas is a great example of giving the player a kind of freedom that is rarely seen outside of tabletop role-playing games. And I'd recommend Game Maker's Toolkit Anatomy of a Side Quest Beyond the Beef for more on that. While that goes in depth on the many different approaches, the thing that I care most about here is simply that there are so many approaches to that one quest. For whatever role you are playing in that role-playing game, there's a believable way for your character to approach the quest. As opposed to more modern Fallout, and Bethesda in general really, titles where all quests only have one approach and one way to solve them. The only way out is through, or to just not play them. I am so deeply unexcited for Starfield, but I know I'm still going to play it out of professional intrigue, and I also know that I'll probably have a fine enough time once the more game-breaking bugs are patched out. It won't be Game of the Year, but it might be a strong contender for 10th place. We'll see how many cool indie games I find this year. It seems self-explanatory to me, but I guess I haven't really gotten into why I think choice is a good thing to have in games. When we talk about choice, we usually refer to narrative choice, how a player can impact a story, but none of gaming's storytelling contemporaries, books, movies, TV shows, plays, and the like, none of them tell stories like that, with the exception of a choose-your-own-adventure novel, I guess. What they offer instead is a curated experience. The storyteller shares one story one way. It's worked so long and rather well for those mediums. Why shouldn't games follow suit? And honestly, I think they should. JRPGs aren't really known for having interactable stories, and I love them all the same. But it's something that games can do, a way that they can tell stories which is rarely seen in other mediums. So, for as good as a curated experience can be, that's why I like choice in games, to showcase what sets the medium apart, which, to be clear, is not choice in itself, but player interaction. While movie games like The Last of Us and the newer God of War titles are all well and good, I am more interested in games that make good use of their own medium. It's why Room of Swords is one of my favorite webtoons, apart from just how good it is, of course. Especially that not season finale. Man, Room of Swords is good, you should read it. The implementation of choice is a good way to go about that, either narratively or in gameplay. It's a way to experience media unique to the medium, and I love seeing the various ways it can be implemented. It's, you could say, a joy. I never know how to end these, and with this one especially, I'm not sure if I've really gotten my point across. The Joy videos are always a little rambly, but with this one I don't have a specific game I want to reference, and the statement, choice is good usually, seems pretty self-explanatory to me. Like, even for the absolute state of Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, the branching narrative and level structure is a cool idea, and I'd recommend it on that alone. I wouldn't with everything else, but it's a cool idea, and I want to see a title do it a little better, like Tactics Ogre or Triangle Strategy, but more. The little gameplay choices in roguelikes such as Hades allow the repetitive playstyle to remain new and fun for much longer than you might expect. Maybe what I'm missing is the other extreme. I'm talking about the joy of choice, so it's easy to point at Fallout 4 and laugh, but as stated at the start of this, too much choice can be an equal detriment. It's the allure of a sandbox title or an open world, but for many it can be why they can't get into the game. I know someone who doesn't enjoy Minecraft because there's no direction from the game. When faced with being able to do just about anything, they instead do nothing, turn off the game, and do something else. That doesn't make Minecraft bad, of course, just like the lack of choice does not in and of itself make a game bad. There's a middle ground that games can uniquely tread, and I like it when they do. The possible party structures of Final Fantasy V, the key choices in Tactics Ogre, the run-defining choices you make in Hades. They're all great, and I'm stoked for Hades 2, but I couldn't do repetition again. Though honestly, that would be thematic. Maybe I should have. Oh man. Oh no. Outside of the gameplay proper, there is another role that choice plays in games, and really any media, and that's choosing what to engage with. This is like a handful of days away from Timely, but the tabletop scene had a recent scare with Hasbro attempting to change the licensing for Dungeons & Dragons. I have only been tangentially aware of what's been going on. While Dungeons & Dragons in name, the games I run are more a Frankenstein's monster of whatever seems like it'd be a fun thing to do. But I do follow a lot of people who were quite invested, so I've been aware. From my understanding, Hasbro wanted to change the licensing such that anything made by fans for the game that made them money, like modules, new spells, items, or monsters, would now generate royalties for Hasbro, so these creators would have to split their earnings with the $8 billion toy giant Hasbro. As of just like the other day, fans seem to have won this struggle. There was a boycott, people canceled D&D Beyond subscriptions. It was a great collective effort, and Hasbro changed their plans, And now, the original license will continue to exist for content that already exists, and future content will be under Creative Commons, at least from my understanding. And it's not a great one, take it with a grain of salt. But something I wanted to do before this news broke was to look at the many tabletop alternatives to Dungeons & Dragons, because there are a lot of them, despite what Hasbro might believe. First to come to mind is probably the most direct competition, Pathfinder. A bit more rules heavy than 5th edition, it can be a bit more intimidating to get into, but once you're used to it, the rules actually help facilitate more flexibility, if your game master is a by-the-books type at least. Flexibility at the table is really up to whoever's dictating the rules. That is, I think, the most key difference, otherwise the two do feel similar. Paizo, the people behind Pathfinder, also have a few other games which change up the flavor, like the Star Sailing Sci-Fi Starfinder. Powered by the Apocalypse refers to a core rule set that serves as the backbone for many games such as Urban Shadows, Alas for the Awful Sea, and Dungeon World. The rule set is a simple one which helps it fit into so many different games, which all tweak as need be. The games run on 2 6-sided dice and usually place more importance on the collaborative storytelling aspect of tabletop campaigns than on more gamey things like rules, leaning heavily on the Master of Ceremonies to determine what a failure, success, or mixed success looks like in any given situation. Blades in the Dark tries to play like a heist movie in a haunted Victorian England and does a pretty good job of it. The players are all members of a crew, and player characters are expected to filter in and out. The crew is the real focus as the ragtag bunch tries to make their way in a city that is callous towards their existence at best. The gameplay has clocks that count down, and once they hit 0, the state of the world changes. Guard patrol will move on. You'll finish cracking into a safe, which is a great idea, and I want to steal it somehow, I just don't know how to implement it into my games. Additionally, instead of preparing for the heist up front, your crew will go and then you'll have flashback sequences, like in the movies. And so for any problem you come up against, you have a set number of times where you can have prepared for it in advance. And it's a really neat idea of blending the heist movie genre with tabletop gameplay, which tends to be very linear. If being one of a collective doesn't suit you, the Burning Wheel has a character creation system that tracks everything your character has done since they were born, and is the only one on this list I haven't personally tried out, so I don't have much more to say about it. But that's only because I've just discovered it. Once I can wrangle enough friends to get together for a minute, we'll be giving it a shot. And that's all I've got for today. Let me know your favorite example of choice in games, as well as your favorite tabletop system. I have been Atticus, and thank you for participating.